Listen to me carefully, because what I'm about to tell you will shake you to your core. My name is Marcus Cole. I'm 73 years old. And today marks exactly 14 months since I discovered my daughter was conspiring to throw me out onto the street. All because she wanted my bedroom for her meditation studio. You want to know what cuts deepest in this life? It's not the betrayal of strangers. You expect that. It's when the child you raised, the one you sacrificed everything for, looks you in the eye and sees nothing but an inconvenience. When they calculate your worth like you're an old appliance taking up space. I'm sitting here, now in my townhouse in Northwest Portland, Oregon. I have this faded photograph of my Catherine in my hands. God rest her beautiful soul. And I swear on everything holy that my hands still tremble when I remember that Thursday evening. It was exactly 14 months ago when I stepped out of the bathroom and heard whispers drifting from my daughter Sophia's study. My daughter, my only child. Tell me, didn't I have the right to trust her? For 38 years, I worked as a machinist for Northwest Steel Mills in Spokane, waking up at 4:30 every morning, metal shavings in my hair, burns on my forearms from the hot steel, breathing in fumes that made my lungs ache. 38 years of that, friends. Saving every dollar I could, buying the cheapest bread from the day-old bakery, wearing boots with holes in them until my sister Ruth bought me new ones for Christmas. All so my family could have better. All so Sophia could go to college. All so Catherine and I could finally own something real. When my Catherine passed away 9 years ago, taken slowly by that merciless diabetes, I sold our modest ranch house in the Hillyard neighborhood. It was small, but it was ours. We had been happy there. I pulled together every penny I'd saved, every dollar I'd hidden in coffee cans and envelopes, and I bought that beautiful craftsman home in the West Hills, a house with a porch where Catherine had always dreamed of sitting in a rocking chair, watching the sunset over the mountains. And you know what I did? I put it in Sophia's name, so my daughter and her family could have security, so they could build their future. What a blind fool I was. But listen closely, because here's where it gets important. Mrs. Diane Patterson, the real estate attorney who handled the paperwork, a sharp woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and piercing blue eyes, told me something I'll never forget. Marcus, you need to include a retained life estate clause. I've been doing this for 30 years. I've seen good children turn into monsters when property is involved. I laughed that day. Mrs. Patterson, I said, you don't know my Sophia. She's got a good heart. She's studying to be a therapist for God's sake. She helps people. She would never hurt me, Dot. Mrs. Patterson shook her head slowly and typed that clause into the document anyway. Thank God above she did. For 4 years I lived in that house, giving Sophia my entire pension check every single month. $4,200. Every penny of my retirement went to house expenses, utilities, property taxes. I got by on almost nothing. Generic soap from the dollar store. Hand-me-down clothes from Ruth. Medication I had to skip some days because I couldn't afford to take it as prescribed. But I was content. You know why? Because I was with my family. Because I watched my grandson Julian and my granddaughter Mia grow up. Because every night before bed, I could tell them stories about their grandmother, Catherine, and see her smile in their faces. Asterisk, asterisk, I had the master suite, the one on the second floor with the bay windows overlooking the Willamette Valley. It was the most beautiful room in the house, the one I chose when I bought the property, because from there I could see the rose garden I had planted in Catherine's memory. In that room, I kept everything that mattered. Our oak bed frame that we bought the year we got married. My framed machinist certification on the wall. My collection of Miles Davis records that I played on Sunday afternoons. The photographs from our trip to Crater Lake when Sophia was 7 years old. grinning with a missing front tooth. But things started shifting about 18 months ago when Sophia's mother-in-law, Evelyn Hartwick, had a falling out with her other daughter and needed somewhere to stay. Sophia, my daughter, started making pointed comments. At first they were small, almost dismissive. "Dad, could you keep your door shut?" That old person smell drifts into the hallway. Or when I was watching my programs on television, "Dad, the volume." I can hear it all the way downstairs. My clients are on Zoom calls. "You're being disruptive." I kept silent, friends. I swallowed it down because I thought Sophia was stressed about her mother-in-law situation. Catherine always told me, "Marcus, you're too soft. You let people walk on you." But daughters need patience. They need understanding. So I kept my mouth shut and tried harder to be invisible. But that Thursday night, exactly 14 months ago, everything shattered. I came out of the bathroom, walked down the hallway toward my bedroom, and heard Sophia's voice coming from her study. The door was cracked open just enough, and her words hit me like a freight train. "Your father can move in with Aunt Ruth. We'll give my mother his room. She needs the space and the quiet. Besides, the house is legally ours now, isn't it? You're the owner." I froze in the hallway. My legs went numb. My heart started pounding so hard, I thought I might collapse right there. Sophia's husband, Brendan, didn't answer right away. I heard the creak of his desk chair. Then his voice, low, uncertain, but it cut me like broken glass. "Well, technically, yes. The deed is in Sophia's name. But your dad? What about your dad?" Sophia interrupted him, her voice sharp, cold. "What about him? He's old, Brendan. He won't care where he lives. He'll adjust. But my mother needs attention. She needs care. Don't you care about your wife more than your father-in-law?" That's when my world collapsed. My hands started shaking so violently, I had to press them against the wall to steady myself. 38 years working in that mill. 9 years raising Sophia alone after Catherine died. 4 years giving them my entire pension. And now they were talking about me like I was a piece of furniture they needed to haul to the curb. Walked into my bedroom and closed the door as quietly as I could. I didn't want them to know I had heard. I sat on the edge of the bed, that bed where Catherine and I had dreamed together, where we had whispered about Sophia's future, where she had made me promise I would always protect our daughter. That night, I didn't sleep at all. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, remembering every sacrifice. The freezing mornings at the mill, the burns on my hands from the molten steel, the sandwiches I packed in wax paper to save money, the back pain that never went away after 40 years of standing on concrete floors. But I never complained because every dollar was for my family. I remembered Catherine in the hospital, thin, jaundiced, holding my hand with what little strength she had left, whispering in that broken voice, "Marcus, promise me. Promise me Sophia will always have a home. Promise me you'll take care of her." And I promised her, friends. I gave her my word as she was dying in my arms. I bought that house with every penny I had earned in my life, with the money from selling our modest home, with a lifetime of calluses and sacrifice. And now Sophia was planning to kick me out so her mother-in-law could have my room, so she could turn my space into her meditation studio, as if my sacrifice meant nothing. As if I were disposable. When morning came, I got up at 5:30 as I had every morning for 40 years. I showered. I shaved carefully in front of the bathroom mirror. I combed my thinning gray hair with the pomade I'd used since I was young, the one Catherine said made me smell like cedar and confidence. Then I went to my closet and took out my best suit. That charcoal suit I had worn only a handful of times in my life. The day of my wedding. the day of Catherine's funeral. And now I put it on slowly. I knotted the burgundy tie Catherine had given me for our 25th anniversary. I polished my black dress shoes until they gleamed. When I looked at myself in the mirror, I didn't see the humiliated old man of the past 4 years. I saw Marcus Cole, the man who had worked 38 years without missing a single shift. The man who had raised a daughter alone after losing his wife. The man who had bought that house with his own sweat and blood. Marcus Cole, I said to my reflection, you will not let them discard you. It ends today. And I walked out of my bedroom with my head high, Mrs. Patterson's business card in my wallet, a determination burning in my chest that I hadn't felt in years. It was 7:45 in the morning. The house was quiet. Sophia was still asleep. Brendan had already left for his consulting firm. The kids were eating cereal and watching cartoons in the living room. I kissed Julian and Mia on their foreheads. I told them I loved them more than anything in this world. And I left the house without eating breakfast. My stomach was twisted with nerves, but my mind was crystal clear. The Max Light Rail from the West Hills into downtown Portland gave me time to think. For 38 years, I had made a similar commute to the steel mill. How many early mornings? How many late nights? How many conversations with coworkers who became like family? And now I was heading downtown not to work, but to reclaim my dignity. At 8:30 sharp, I knocked on the glass door of Mrs. Diane Patterson's law office. Her assistant, a kind middle-aged man with a gentle smile, told me Mrs. Patterson didn't have an opening until 11. But when I explained it was urgent, he went to speak with her. 5 minutes later, the attorney herself came out. Mrs. Patterson had aged in those 9 years, but she was still the same commanding presence I remembered. Her hair was completely silver now. She had more lines around her eyes, but her gaze was still razor-sharp and steady. When she saw me, her expression shifted from curiosity to concern, then recognition. Mr. Cole, it's been years. 9? 10? She shook my hand firmly. Come in, please. What brings you here? I hope it's not bad news. We sat in her office that smelled of leather and strong coffee. The same framed degrees on the walls. Photographs of her grandchildren on her desk. Mrs. Patterson poured me coffee in a ceramic mug and sat across from me with the patience of someone who has heard every story there is to hear. Mrs. Patterson, I said, I'm here about the house I put in my daughter Sophia's name 9 years ago. Do you remember that deed? Mrs. Patterson frowned thoughtfully and then stood up to go to a tall filing cabinet behind her desk. Cole, Marcus, she murmured as she searched through the folders. Here it is. Property transfer with retained life estate clause. She returned to her desk with a thick file and opened it in front of me. Of course I remember. You insisted the clause wasn't necessary, but I told you I'd seen too many families implode over real estate. I finished her sentence. You were right, Mrs. Patterson. Completely right. Mrs. Patterson removed her reading glasses, cleaned them slowly with a cloth, and looked at me with an expression that told me she already knew what was coming. Tell me what happened, Mr. Cole. Don't leave anything out because I need every detail. For the next hour, I told her everything. I told her about the 4 years of small humiliations, about Sophia's comments about my smell and my television volume, about how they made me feel like a burden in the house I had paid for with decades of labor. I told her about the conversation I overheard, where they planned to send me to my sister's house so Evelyn could have my room. About the phone call where Sophia told her friend she was going to convert my bedroom into her meditation and yoga studio. About how Sophia had been measuring my room with a tape measure and browsing furniture. Websites on her laptop. Mrs. Patterson listened without interrupting, taking notes occasionally on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, she sat in silence for several minutes reviewing the documents in the file. "Mr. Cole," she finally said, "the retained life estate clause is ironclad. As long as you are alive, you have the absolute legal right to remain in that property. Any attempt to remove you constitutes a severe breach of the deed of gift. And when there's a breach, the law provides two remedies. You can demand enforcement of your rights, or you can request full reversal of the transfer. Reversal means I can get the house back." I asked, even though I already knew the answer. "Exactly. If a judge determines that your daughter and son-in-law have violated the conditions under which the gift was made, they can order the property to revert to your name. It's as if the transfer never happened." Mrs. Patterson leaned forward in her chair. "Do you have proof of what you're telling me?" I explained that I had started recording conversations with a small device my sister Ruth had bought me. One of those digital recorders students use for lectures. Over the past 2 weeks, I had captured several comments from Sophia, including a conversation where she told her mother over the phone, "In a month or so, you'll have your room. Mom, Dad is moving to Aunt Ruth's place. It's already decided." Mrs. Patterson smiled for the first time during our meeting. "Mr. Cole, you did well to document this. Recordings made in your own home are admissible evidence. We're going to file for breach of contract, and we're going to request full reversal of the transfer." The next 3 weeks were the strangest of my life, friends. On the surface, I was still the same grandfather. I played with Julian and Mia. I helped in the kitchen when Sophia allowed it. I kept Catherine's rose garden watered and trimmed. But inside, I carried a secret that gave me strength. A hope I hadn't felt in years. Mrs. Patterson had filed a lawsuit in Multnomah County Circuit Court, and now we just had to wait for the hearing date. Sophia continued her passive-aggressive comments, but they didn't sting anymore. When she would say, "Dad, have you talked to Aunt Ruth about moving in with her yet?" I would answer calmly, "Don't worry, Sophia. Everything will be resolved very soon." She interpreted my words as surrender, but I knew she was about to get the shock of her life. Brendan, for his part, started avoiding me. He came home late from work, ate quickly, disappeared into the study with Sophia. But sometimes I caught him staring at me with this strange expression, like he suspected something was shifting beneath the surface. One evening after dinner, he approached me while I was reading in the living room. "Marcus," he said, "are you okay? You seem different lately, calmer somehow." I wanted to tell him the truth right then. I wanted to explain that his wife had turned me into a ghost in my own home, that he had allowed me to be humiliated for 4 years. But I stayed quiet. There would be time to talk in court. "I'm fine, Brendan," I told him. "Just thinking about some changes I might need to make." Brendan nodded, but I saw unease in his eyes. Maybe deep down he knew what they were planning was wrong. The day of the hearing arrived on a cold Tuesday morning in February. I got up earlier than usual. I put on my charcoal suit, my burgundy tie, my polished black shoes. I ate breakfast alone in the kitchen, watching the rain fall on Catherine's roses through the window. "Today, my love," I said softly, "your Marcus is going to get his dignity back." The courthouse was downtown in a gray stone building that looked like it had stood for 100 years. Mrs. Patterson was waiting for me at the entrance, also dressed impeccably, carrying a leather briefcase full of documents. "Are you ready, Mr. Cole?" she asked. "More ready than I've ever been," I replied. Sophia and Brendan arrived 20 minutes later, accompanied by a young attorney who looked barely out of law school. Sophia was wearing an expensive navy dress and heels like she was going to a business conference. Brendan wore a crisp shirt and a tie I didn't recognize. They looked confident, sure of themselves, like they had already won. When they saw me sitting next to Mrs. Patterson, Sophia greeted me with a fake smile. Good morning, Dad. I didn't know you had hired an attorney, too. Brendan didn't greet me. He just looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. The judge was a man in his early 60s, serious but not harsh, with silver hair and wire-rimmed glasses that gave him an air of quiet authority. His name was Judge Morales, and from the moment he began speaking, I knew he was a fair person. This is a hearing regarding an alleged breach of a deed of gift. He announced, Mr. Marcus Cole claims that his daughter Sophia Cole and her husband Brendan Hartwick have violated the conditions under which a property was transferred 9 years ago. Mrs. Patterson, please present your arguments. Mrs. Patterson stood and spoke for 30 minutes, explaining with precision and clarity everything that had happened to me. She presented the recordings I had made, read the retained life estate clause aloud, and explained how Sophia had planned to convert my bedroom into a meditation studio after forcing me out of the house. When the recordings played in the courtroom, Sophia went pale. Her own voice filled the room. I can't take having him here anymore. In a month or so, you'll have your room. Mom, Dad is moving to Aunt Ruth's place. It's already decided. Brendan stared at the floor, his hands clenched together. Then it was the turn of Sophia and Brendan's attorney to speak. The young man stammered and fumbled with his papers. Your Honor, he said, my client is the legal owner of the property. The deed is in her name. She has the right to decide who resides on her property. Judge Morales interrupted him in a firm voice. Counselor, did you review the full deed before coming here? Because it appears you're unaware of the retained life estate clause. The lawyer turned red and started frantically flipping through his documents. Then the judge asked Sophia directly, Ms. Cole, do you confirm that you discussed with your husband the possibility of asking your father to leave the house? Sophia went white as snow and began stammering. Your Honor, it was just talk. It was never serious. But Brendan couldn't stay silent. He jumped to his feet. Your Honor, this has all been a misunderstanding. We never intended to actually force him out. We were just exploring options. Judge Morales banged his gavel once, sharply. Mr. Hartwick, sit down. This court does not appreciate dishonesty. The recordings speak for themselves. After hearing all the arguments and reviewing the evidence, the judge continued. This court finds that there has indeed been a serious breach of the conditions of the deed of gift. Mr. Marcus Cole has 2 legal options. He can demand enforcement of his life estate rights, or he can request complete reversal of the transfer. My heart was pounding so hard, I thought it might burst through my chest. The moment had come to make the most important decision of my life. I stood up slowly, straightened my tie, and looked Sophia directly in the eyes for the first time in months. Your Honor, I said in a clear, strong voice, I choose the second option. I request complete reversal of the transfer. I want my house back. Sophia gasped. Dad, no, we can fix this. I won't say anything anymore. We'll make it work. But it was too late. The judge banged his gavel again and rendered his judgment. Reversal is granted. The property returns to the sole ownership of Mr. Marcus Cole. The current occupants have 30 days to vacate. The silence that followed was absolute. Sophia was crying. Brendan looked at me like I was a stranger. And I, for the first time in 4 years, felt completely free. 5 months have passed since then, friends. Here I am sitting in my townhouse in northwest Portland, finishing this story while looking at a photograph of Julian and Mia. 5 months since, Judge Morales banged his gavel and returned what was mine. 5 months since Sophia and Brendan had to pack their things and find a new place to live. Do you know what I did when I got my house back? The first thing I did was sell it. Yes, you heard me right. After everything I had fought for, after winning in court, I sold it because I understood something crucial. That house was no longer my home. It had become a battlefield, a place filled with humiliation and bitter memories. I couldn't stay there looking at every corner, or Sophia had planned to erase my existence. I sold it for $820,000. A solid price, the real estate agent said, because the West Hills market had soared over the years. With $350,000, I bought this townhouse near Forest Park. Smaller, but it's mine. 2 bedrooms and a kitchen that smells like fresh coffee every morning. From my window, I see the park where I now play chess with my friends, where children run and laugh like Julian and Mia used to when they were younger. The other $470,000 I placed in a trust that Mrs. Patterson helped me establish. It's for my grandchildren when they turn 25. $235,000 for Julian. $235,000 for Mia, for when they're adults and can understand the difference between real love and manipulation, between respect and convenience. I didn't leave Sophia and Brendan a single cent, just a letter. I wrote that last night in the West Hills house before they came to collect their belongings. I left it on the kitchen table where we had shared so many meals as a family, Sophia and Brendan. I hope your meditation studio was worth losing a house and losing a father. The money from the sale is saved for Julian and Mia for when they're old, enough to appreciate the meaning of sacrifice and respect. May God bless you, Marcus. You know what was the hardest part of all this? It wasn't the trial. It wasn't selling the house. It wasn't moving alone at 73. The hardest part was seeing Sophia's face when she realized she had lost everything by following her selfish ambitions. When she realized that by indulging her own desires, she had lost not only the house, but also her father. The day they came for their things, Sophia showed up with a moving truck and 2 young men to help load. She didn't speak to me. She walked through the house like a phantom, packing her expensive clothes and designer furniture. All those things she had bought with the money I gave them every month. But Brendan did approach me. "Marcus," he said in a broken voice, "I'm sorry. I never wanted it to come to this." I looked him in the eyes, and I said, "Brendan, I gave you everything I had. A house, money, respect, love, and you chose convenience over gratitude. There is nothing to forgive because it wasn't a mistake. It was a choice." He was silent for a moment, then added, "What if things change? What if Sophia learns from this?" I shook my head. "Brendan, Sophia won't change because Sophia doesn't believe what she did was wrong. And you won't change either because you allowed me to be treated like trash in the house I bought with. 38 years of labor, now they live in Beaverton, in a cramped 2-bedroom apartment that costs them $3,000 a month. Sophia can no longer brag that she owns a house. She can no longer invite her friends over for wine in her spacious living room. She can no longer talk about her meditation studio. The 4 of them live squeezed into 900 square feet. Sophia, Brendan, the children, and Evelyn, who finally got her room but in a place she despises. Sophia's colleagues at the therapy clinic heard the whole story. Portland is small, friends. Word travels fast. Now when she goes to work, she hears whispers. There's the one who kicked her father out for a yoga studio. Her supervisor, who knew my reputation as a dedicated worker because we attended the same union meetings years ago, told her, "Sophia, your father was a respected man. I don't understand how you could do that to him." Sophia blames Brendan. Brendan blames Sophia. They argue at night, according to my sister Ruth, who lives near their apartment complex. "This is your fault," Sophia shouts at him. "Your father was stubborn, and you didn't handle him right." And Brendan replies, "It was your idea to get rid of him. I never wanted to go that far. But you know what? The most beautiful part of this entire story is my new life, friends. For the first time in years, I feel truly free. I wake up when I want. I eat what I feel like. I watch my programs with the volume as high as I please. I listen to Miles Davis on Sunday afternoons without anyone complaining. Every day I walk to Forest Park, which is 4 blocks from here. There I met Mr. Daniel Reeves, a retired electrician my age, and Mr. Anthony Chun, who worked 35 years at the port. The 3 of us are widowers. The 3 of us have stories to tell. The 3 of us play chess from 9 in the morning until 1 in the afternoon. Marcus, they told me when I shared my story, you did the right thing. A man has to stand up for himself, no matter his age. Mr. Reeves added, I had to cut off my oldest son for stealing from me. It hurt, but it was necessary. Sometimes real love means setting boundaries. On Wednesdays and Fridays, I volunteer at St. Francis Community Kitchen, serving meals to the homeless. I ladle soup, hand out rolls, and listen to the stories of men who lost everything and are trying to rebuild. Many are younger than me, but some are grandfathers like me who ended up on the street because their families abandoned them. Mr. Cole, Father Miguel tells me, you were fortunate. You were able to defend yourself in time. And he's right. How many elderly people don't have a Mrs. Patterson? Who don't have the foresight to include a protective clause? Who just stay silent until it's too late? But what fills my heart the most are my grandchildren. Julian and Mia come to see me on Saturday afternoons without Sophia and Brendan knowing. They slip away under some excuse. We're going to the bookstore. We're going to the park. And they come running here. They knock on my door with that urgency children have when they need something desperately. Grandpa, they shout when I open the door, and I hug them tight. I feel their small hearts beating fast from the run. I smell their clean hair, and I know everything I went through was worth it for these moments. Julian, who is 13 now, and serious beyond his years, asked me a few weeks ago, Grandpa, why do my parents say you did something terrible? Mom says you sued them for no reason. I sat down with him in my living room, poured him a glass of lemonade, and explained it to him in words he could understand. Julian, I said, your parents thought they could treat me like an old appliance that no longer worked. They wanted to kick me out of the house I bought so your mom could have a yoga studio. I only reminded them that elderly people have dignity too. We also deserve respect. I didn't do anything wrong, son. I defended what was mine. Mia, who is 10 but incredibly perceptive, said, Grandpa, I heard Mom telling Grandma Evelyn that you were cruel because you didn't want to go live with Aunt Ruth. I explained, Sweetheart, would you give up your bedroom to sleep in the garage just because someone else wanted your room? I wouldn't either. Besides, Aunt Ruth is getting older, and she didn't need the burden of taking care of me. I tell them stories about their grandmother Catherine. I teach them how to make her famous berry cobbler. I explain what life was like when I worked at the steel mill. They listen with those bright eyes children have when someone gives them genuine, undivided attention. When you turn 25, I tell them, you'll receive the money I saved for you. But by then, you'll be adults. You'll understand the value of work. You'll know the difference between what is earned and what is simply handed over. Julian asked me, Is it a lot of money, Grandpa? And I answer, It's enough for you to start your adult life without debt, for you to go to university, for you to have choices. Last Sunday early in the morning, I was sitting on my favorite bench in Forest Park tossing breadcrumbs to the sparrows when Julian came running up with a bouquet of white daisies in his hand. He was out of breath, his cheeks flushed from running. Grandpa, he said, handing me the flowers, these are from me and Mia. It's not your birthday or anything, but we wanted to give you something because we love you so much. I took the daisies that smelled like spring and Sunday mornings, and I felt my eyes fill with tears. I hugged him close. I breathed in the scent of his hair, and in that moment I knew I had done the right thing. Not out of revenge, not out of anger, but out of dignity. To teach my grandchildren that love doesn't mean tolerating anything, that respect is not begged for, and that elderly people are not disposable. Julian, I whispered, tell Mia that Grandpa is very happy, that I am very proud of both of you. Then I looked up at the sky, at that clear Oregon blue that Catherine loved so much, and I said to her in silence, I did it, my love. I defended my dignity just like you taught me, just like you would have wanted. My friends, if you're listening to me, if someone out there is going through something similar, let me tell you something vital. Love for your children should never become the humiliation of their parents. Sometimes the best gift we can give our children is to teach them that every person, regardless of age, has boundaries that cannot be crossed. I did not act out of malice. I acted out of dignity. I didn't want to hurt them. I wanted to educate them. Sometimes true love hurts, but it is necessary, because if I had continued to tolerate it, if I had quietly moved to my sister Ruth's house, what would I have taught Julian and Mia? That it's acceptable to disrespect your grandparents? That elderly people are worthless? That you can trample on someone who loves you unconditionally? No, friends. I would rather be remembered as the grandfather who stood up for himself, who fought for his dignity, who proved that old age is not a synonym for weakness, would rather live alone with my head held high than be surrounded but humiliated. This is my story, the story of Marcus Cole, 73 years old, widower, former machinist, father of a daughter who forgot gratitude, and grandfather of 2 wonderful grandchildren who will one day understand why their grandpa had to fight for his place in this world. This story is for you, friends, so you know that it is never too late to defend yourself. It is never too late to say enough. May God bless you, and remember, dignity is not given away or sold. It is defended.